So this is my pattern for my strawberry tea cozy, and I will put a PDF. It'll probably take 3 pages. Drives me nuts how much it takes to make these things that really aren't that big. But your printer won't print all the way to the edge of the paper, so we have to do it that way. I have a liner. I have 2 layers of Insul-Bright, and I've just looked again at the website for the Warm Company to see if they have a special recommendation for which way you face your Insul-Bright. And they say that technically you do want to put the reflective side towards the heat source, but that the difference is slight. And so honestly, I don't actually pay that much attention to it. But if you want to do it properly, you want the shiniest side to face in towards the tea. And that's how you would do that. I've got 2 layers of Insul-Bright, and I've actually got mine faced like this in the hopes that it'll not slip around quite so much. Alright, so I'm gonna put this on here. It looks like what I was trying to do was just do a little just to kind of look like that stem end at the top of a strawberry. That cluster of leaves and stuff. So I've kind of drawn that on there for myself. This green part is actually fairly forgiving, and it just seems if you make this approximate shape, we're going to put a big pinch or pleat in the top of this cozy before it's finished, and it's going to look pretty nice as long as you do it approximately the same size and shape as shown on the pattern. And so don't sweat this too much. The hardest thing is that you're working with these slippery layers and you're trying to quilt up to the edge and shape something that'll look nice. And you can see that I'm sort of outlining it and then I'm going back and filling in. And you can do this with any strategy that works for you, including just outlining it and then meandering it, or sort of echo quilting around the shape. Anything that works for you is going to look cute. And in a second I'll flash up a link to my earlier free motion quilt video that covers 5 basting strategies, one of which I don't recommend, which is pinning for this, or any kind of raw edge applique. I don't recommend pinning. I felt like it was kind of little, so I went around the outside one other time. So I've got that one, and then I'll do this one. Pretty slippery with these layers, so you might want it based. Or that might be kind of big. That's pretty hefty there. We'll see how we like it when it's done. I'm not actually going to wash this. Insul-Bright is polyester. I'm just going to meander this, and I'm going to loop around so that it looks a little bit like seeds. And I'm just not going to worry about it too much. A viewer told me recently that she likes to see me work at regular speed for part of the time, and so I'm going to try to do that a little more often. I'll still provide timestamps so that if that stuff is very boring for some people, they could skip right past it. And she also said that little reminders help, and so I had stopped putting so many little reminders of certain kinds of things, and I'll try to do that. As many of you know who have been with me from the beginning, I'm trying to teach a philosophy, and I'm trying to build that up through the videos. And so I'm not as interested in having someone jump in for one video and learn everything I have to say about sewing in one video. And so I'll try to strike a balance where For those of you that are sticking with me, there are little reminders and easy links for you to go back and review things that I can't completely recover in a video. And then also going fast enough that you're not getting a video that's a couple minutes of new information and a pattern and then 45 minutes of review. Closing these kinds of big, thick items is probably the part of my sewing that I grit my teeth on the most. So when you're doing it, go slow, prop your foot if you need to, and don't let yourself stress out about it. So I stitched this at 5/8, and now I'm cutting it around 3/16. I want to take a minute here to say thank you to everybody who has been watching from the beginning or who's come on along the way and kept up with what I'm doing. I wanted to let you know that right now I'm running a special on pot holders for free shipping on Etsy, and so if you're interested in something like that, I have about, oh, it must be about 18 different pot holder choices to choose from, and you can check that out. So this is just a scissor cut scrap. You know, with these kinds of organic shapes, we really don't want a super straight, perfect thing anyway. And so this is almost 2 inches wide, and it's a little over 5.5 inches, and it's not perfectly straight. And all I did was press it in half and then press in the two edges, not all the way to the middle. I have an edge foot in, and I kicked all the way over to the left. So I have this now, and it's actually pretty perfect looking. What I'm going to ultimately do is pinch this about for a 5/8 seam inside there, and I'm only going to stitch from about here to there, and I'm going to tuck these ends in there, and I'm going to stitch that. And what that's going to do is make this shape more organic and rounded. It's going to lower the center a little bit. It's going to tend to make my bottom hug the countertop a little better, and I'm not going to spend a lot of energy trying to do that, but I am going to take it and I'm going to grab it by approximately where I want to stitch it, and then I'm going to turn this out folded on itself. You can tell when I see what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to double this up. And it doesn't need to be perfect. In fact, if it is perfect, it's going to keep it from seeming organic. So now I have this folded. It looks like a looks like a bonnet from Little House on the Prairie. And we're going to take this with our two raw ends, and those are going to go inside there, but tucked right in here, and then we're going to stitch across here. We're not going to taper it like a dart. We could do that, but I don't think it's necessary, and I think that we can achieve what we're trying to do without going to that trouble. So if you can imagine what we're doing. So many of these things are easier to just do than they are to show someone how to do them. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to imagine the halfway point between there, and you can see how this isn't perfect, but it kind of reminds you of the top of a strawberry. And so I've got this folded, and I'm going to take this and I'm going to pin it about 1/4 inch from there, and this is my, and I'm not going to pin down very deep. I'm just going to try to get that pinned onto the surface, and so that I'm not pinning through any extra layers. And then I'm going to pin through here and not stab my hand on the other side so that I can really see that halfway part. Okay, and then I'm just holding this, the halfway part. I'm going to pull that out so that I won't hurt myself. I'm even going to pull that out so that I won't hit it with my machine. And so I'm just holding this very firmly. And then I'm gonna pull this around, and I've just got a fist around this because I don't want that moving around on me. Okay? And then without allowing it to get disturbed at all, I hope you can see this. I've switched sides because the project kept, and my hands kept getting in the way. This is a pretty tough one here. If we're trying to go 3/4 or an inch on this side, back stitch first, come over, reinforce that a little bit, and then come over and reinforce the end. So we're only trying to go 1.5 to 2 inches, but we've got all this bulk, and it's a lot of bulk. And so we are gonna prop our foot, and we're gonna go real slow, and I'm gonna walk a lot, which is complicated with a machine that doesn't have a proper up down. But here I'm going to go backwards. A little bit. And then I'm going to go forwards, and I'm going to start heading up this hill. So I'm going to get something under there behind my needle to prop that. I'm going to go ahead and use my clothespin and come on over, and I'm gonna start to slip off that clothespin at some point, and so I'm gonna bring it back up under there. See how it doesn't want to go through there? So that's why I'm just gonna walk through this whole thing, which is a pain. It is. Okay, I'm starting to get away from my clothespin again, so I'm going to try to push that under there. Okay, and then I'm going to try to come. Okay, I'm heading down. Now I could level myself out just a little bit here with this. Then I'm going to go backwards. No, it does not want to go backwards. Need one more hand for this. So I'm basically just stitching in place. I'm going to go a little bit further. Do a little tight knot. You can see my stitching. I've stitched a little bit further one way than the other, and as I say, that's going to be okay. Moment of truth, we open this up. Is this sewn in good? And I think it's sewn in good. And so this is the top of the strawberry. My family is wanting it to look like whipped cream on the bottom. I did another binding a lot like this, and I'll put the video up here. It'll start right at the part where I'm binding the other tea cozy. You basically sew this on the inside. You want to go right side to wrong side of the tea cozy and stitch it on there. I used a 1/2 inch seam allowance. My fabric is not a batik. So I just trimmed this off here, and I've got a bit of an overlap, and I have this much extra for my scrap pile. And then I'm going to press this flat all the way around with my iron, just so that it behaves the best possible on the inside there. I'm so unsure about this whipped cream idea that I actually do a quick mock-up, which I'm showing right here, and I show it to my husband, and he thinks it's really nice. So I go ahead and do that. This tea cozy is a little bit harder to make than the other one we made because it's wider at the top than it is right where it touches the counter. And so it's sort of hard to sew on your binding without a free arm. And so if you don't have a free arm, I think you should consider just doing a standard either double fold binding or bias tape binding where you sew it on right side of your binding to the right side of the tea cozy and turn it inside of the tea cozy and then hand stitch it down the way you would with many projects with a traditional type of a binding. If you have a free arm and you can try to free motion, I would not do that unless you were pretty experienced at free motioning, and then if you are, it might be time to add that to your repertoire. But many of these projects can be made at different skill levels. Sewing on the calyx or cap of the strawberry, you could just outline it, pivoting with a regular foot stitching, or with a walking foot would be nice, because it would be hard to not have this slip all over the place with a regular foot. But you could just echo quilt lines to do your top if you wanted. This could be done with a walking foot. You might like a pattern that had diagonal lines or even just vertical lines or horizontal lines. You could even just buy some quilted fabric and make this, and it could be quite cute, and just sew on your green fabric at the top, and that might, with already quilted fabric, might be pretty slick to do because you're not going to have shifting in your layers. But so strawberry tea cozy.